Hey guys, and welcome back to Teams Tuesday. We've got something a little bit different for you today. We are looking at security in Teams and what can I do to make Teams more secure. Now, I got to be honest, we're going to get really spicy and into the technical details today. So you might want to grab a coffee, sit down, let's get into it. Okay, so couple of basics first. I am not today going to talk about Office 365 security in any meaningful way. So we're not talking about conditional access. We're not talking about multi-factor authentication. Those things are basics. You should have already done them by now. This is around Teams. How do we protect our people? How do we protect our sensitive data? And how do we collaborate securely with people inside and outside the organization? Not the usual standard internal, external sharing settings. No, no, no. We're going deep. I told you we're going spicy. We're getting into the real deep settings now. So come along, let's take a look. First things first, we're going to jump into the Teams admin portal. So you can see you're joining me today. I'm at my desk, so you can see what I can see over here on the right-hand side. So first thing we're going to look at is let's just have a quick look at the meeting policies. So Teams meeting policies, and you should have a global policy. I just want to come down to guests, because this is one of the common things that we get asked about is participants and guests inside meetings. So do we want anonymous people to start a meeting? Absolutely no. That means if anyone gets hold of that meeting link or that telephone number, then they can jump in and they can start that meeting. Do we want everyone to be automatically admitted to the meeting? So again, by default, it's everyone inside the organization. So if you send out a Teams meeting and people join from inside your organization, they will join and the meeting will start. Anyone outside the organization will be held in a lobby until they're let in. You can customize this. You can let everyone in if you want. So internal or external, doesn't matter. As long as they've got the link to the meeting, they will join and jump in. I think that's a bad setting. Everyone in your organization is a pretty good solid start. If you want to be especially strict about this, then you can set it to organizer only. So if I send out the Teams invitation for the meeting, only I can start the meeting. Everybody else will be held in the lobby. Okay? Whilst I think about guests and guest access, let's also just check something out, because when we share information with a guest, when we share a file with a guest that's part of one of our teams, by default, they are then able to share or invite other guests to that resource. Okay, that sounds pretty dodgy to me. I wouldn't want that to happen. So let's have a look. Let's head over to the Azure portal. Okay, and we're going to jump in and have a look at Azure Active Directory, which I've got right here. We're just going to go under Users. We're going to go to User Settings, and then we're going to slip down here to External Collaboration Settings. Now, here's what I'm telling you. Guests can invite other guests. No, I don't want that, thank you very much. So we're going to hit no, and then we're going to save up at the top here. Guests should not be able to invite other guests to your organization or to your resources. Okay, so let's also have a look, whilst we're in the Teams admin portal, let's jump back here. Let's look at Teams applications. So you should be familiar with this by now. If I just pop up Teams for a second, you'll know that you can hit the three dots here and you can start searching for any applications like Polly, if you want to run a poll. So these are third-party and Microsoft approved applications that can in some way interact with your user data, your business data, even if it's just email addresses and names of people who are getting involved. These are third-party tools that you're able to then integrate into Teams. And again, users can do this integration themselves. So if you want to have some control over which applications appear here, that's what we're going to do under the Teams Manage Apps over here. Now, we can one at a time choose to block or allow these applications, okay? But there's a big long list of them, yeah? One of the easier things that you might want to do is jump into permission policies here. And at this stage, what we can do is have a look at the org-wide policy, and we can choose, do we want the Microsoft applications? Okay, do we want all of them? Do we want some of them and block everything else? Or do we want block everything, block some and allow everything else? Or block all of them? What do we want to do? Again, you're in the driving seat. By default, everything is allowed. Same for third-party apps, and same for custom applications or side-loaded applications. These are all allowed by default. So again, you choose where that business data goes. Again, whilst I think about business data and where it goes, Let me just jump into the org-wide settings for a moment, and let me just think about external access. No, I want to think about guest access. Come down on guest access, and let's have a look at two things. One is, are we allowing guests at all in Teams? By default, it is on. So if you've chosen specifically for it to be off, you would do that here. If you haven't chosen anything, then the new defaults as of today, February 15th, 2021, is that the service default is guest access is enabled. Now, if you hadn't chosen anything particular, I would suggest you come here and just make sure that it does align with your company policy. Now, the thing I was just looking for there when I was thinking about files, I want to make sure our external data only goes in the places where I want it to go. So where do I want files to be saved to when I look at the Files tab? Again, by default, we've got OneDrive and SharePoint that are baked into Office 365, and we can apply our compliance and our DLP and our retention policies to all those places. That's great. But also out of the box, we've got Citrix, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, and Egnyte are all enabled as well. So if I don't want any of these file services, or I don't want my users to choose any of these file services, I need to come in here and specifically turn those off. Okay, makes sense? Let's dig a little bit deeper now. So these are just the basics that you can control inside the Teams administration portal. Admittedly, we jumped into Azure AD, but this is something I'd strongly recommend about disabling guests, inviting guests. Let us just jump over to the new compliance center under compliance.microsoft.com, because what I want to look at is data loss protection that we can apply to Microsoft Teams. So we're in the new compliance portal. Let's come down to policies and let's come across to data loss prevention. Now, here we can actually create some policies for DLP, and we can look for specific types of information, and we can actually block or take action on when we see that information being passed through Microsoft Teams. So, for example, we want to make sure that no one is sending credit card information over Microsoft Teams. Let's take a look at how we would do that. Here, we're going to create a policy. Okay, now we can start with a template. So we can apply things to our country if we want to. So I'm going to choose the United Kingdom, and here we've got the PCI DSS, payment card industry compliance, which looks for credit card numbers. So I'm going to pick PCI DSS. Next, name my policy. I'm just going to take this one. Okay, where do I want to apply that? So I can apply, as you can see, across Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, across devices as well. Actually, I'm only interested in Teams. So let me just put this, and you'll see that it covers chat and channel messages. Now, I can also apply it here to everyone in the organization, or I can make some exclusions if I want to over here as well. At the moment, I'm going to apply this to everybody. So let's go next. I can review the template that we've got, but actually I'm quite happy with the credit card number template that Microsoft have provided. I can decide, is this detection going to happen when I send those messages outside the organization or inside the organization? Now I can set up a policy to cover both, but we're just going to choose one at this stage. So I'm going to say, if I send or try to send credit card information outside the organization through Teams, I want this policy to kick in. Next, protection actions. What should I do? So firstly, when I see this happen, I can pop up a tip that appears on screen for the user that's trying to do it. And I want to say, hey, you can't send credit card information, can't type, over Teams. Okay, so they're going to get a message on screen. We're not going to allow them to do this. We can detect when a certain amount of those things have been shared at the same time. Actually, you know what? If I see one credit card number, well, I'm pretty unhappy. So I want to make sure that's blocked. I can choose who I send incident reports to. I can send the alerts off to people as well. So I can take action straight away. Next. So I've got some override settings here that I don't need to do right now, so it's not relevant for this particular use case, but just know that we do have different overrides available here. Now, I've come to turn on the policy. I can either turn it on in test mode and actually show those policy tips in test mode so I can see when this is happening, and I'll get the alerts and I'll get all those actions through, but we're not specifically interfering with the user at this stage. I can turn it on, or I can turn it off, but I can save all the settings that I've made so far. Okay, I hit next, and then I hit submit, and then that's going to create the DLP policy for me. Whilst I think around a DLP, I also think around compliance goes hand in hand with data retention. So let's just have a look whilst that's submitting. Yeah, let's just leave that running. There we go. So let's come back to policies and let's look at retention. So again, I'm still inside the Compliance Center, compliance.microsoft.com. I'm under policies and I'm under retention. Now, what I can start to do is create retention policies against Microsoft Teams to decide I need to keep that information. Again, I can do this by a certain type of information, or I can do it for all data. So, new retention policy. This is going to apply to chat and channel messages. So Teams policy. I'm going to hit next. How long do I want to keep it for? So again, if you're familiar with the DLP settings, you'll know, the retention settings, you'll know that we can do this for 7 years from when it was created or from when it was last modified. We can auto delete it after a certain amount of time. Now, again, this is going to encapsulate every single thing. If we want to be specific around the data that we're capturing and retaining, then we can use the advanced retention settings here. What we'll do is that we can either choose specific words or phrases, or we can choose specific types of sensitive information. So again, let's have a look at that as an example. We're going to choose sensitive information. Again, I'm going to filter this to the United Kingdom. And again, I'm just going to look for UK financial data this time. So now, if we see UK financial data contained within a Teams channel or chat message, we are going to retain that data for 7 years, okay? And it's going to be available to us in the eDiscovery Center. So next, where do I want that to apply to? So here we're looking at Exchange email, OneDrive, SharePoint documents, or we can do specific locations. So I'm going to choose all locations. I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to create that policy. Job done. What else? Let's dig a little bit deeper. So we've talked about DLP, we've talked about retention. Now I want to think about, so we're protecting business data. I want to think about protecting your users from things that they shouldn't see or risks that they shouldn't be put to. So let's think of it that way. I want to protect my users from bad language, from offensive material, from content that shouldn't be sent to them in a workplace. So again, inside the Compliance Center, compliance.microsoft.com, I'm going to come down to the Solutions catalog here. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for the Insider Risk Management, Communication Compliance. Let's hit View and let's open that solution. Now, you can see I've already got a policy that I've set up earlier, but let's go through the process. I want to create a policy that is monitoring for offensive language and content. So it's not just text, it will look for images as well. So let's monitor for offensive language. I'm just going to pull this policy number 3 because I've created a couple already. I want to apply this to everybody. And I want to send it to the administrator for review. So you can see I can assign this to users or groups, or I can assign it to the entire organization. And I can choose who are going to be the reviewers, who are going to get alerted when this material is noted, okay? We're not going to send any feedback to the end users who post the material. What we're going to do is flag that. So it might be a HR team, it might be some other part of the organization who is there to monitor for this type of behavior, but we can set who the reviewers are. Okay, so what are we going to be looking for? Well, we're going to be looking at these monitored locations: Exchange, Teams, Skype for Business, and Yammer. We're looking at any direction of communication, whether it's inbound, outbound, or internal. So whether these things are going in or outside the organization or between members inside the same organization, we are looking for this content. And here's the content that we're looking for. So harassment, profanity, threat, and then all these image types as well. Really, really simple. If we want, we can customize the policy a little bit and we can start to add things. I like to just shift here and just make sure this is definitely set to all users. I can choose the locations. Now, actually, I'm only in this particular instance really worried about Teams. I want to make sure I'm protecting my Teams users. I do want all the communication directions to be covered, and I'm quite happy with all of these classifiers at the moment. I can add more if I wanted to, but I'm happy with these. So again, I'm just going to hit Next. I'm going to hit Create Policy. And after that, it's going to take about an hour for that policy to kick in and really start monitoring things, and about 24 hours before we're going to start to see any of those alerts and reports come through to the moderators. And that's it, that's done. So we're now monitoring for that type of material. Now, we can use the same engine here to monitor for sensitive information. If you remember in the previous example, we did some data loss protection. And we did data loss protection looking for credit card information. And at that stage, we actively stopped the user and said, hey, you cannot send it this way. I'm going to stop this message and I'm going to send you a notification that says don't do that. If we want to just monitor across the organization without interfering with all the users, we can put that into training mode under DLP, or again, under communication compliance, we can come in here and we can create a policy to monitor for sensitive information. So let's do that. Let's look for sensitive information. Again, we're going to apply this to everybody. We're going to send it to a reviewer, and we're going to hit the add sensitive information types here. Now again, I'm in the UK, so I'm going to search for UK here, and I'm going to find a few sensitive information types. So click that, I get driver's license number, NHS number, passport number, those kinds of things. So I'm going to add those. I'm also want to make sure that I'm going to look out for any credit card information. So let's just search for credit card. And let's add that into the list as well. Okay, so great. I've added 7 different types of things that I'm going to look for across all employees. And if I see those, I'm going to flag it to these reviewers. Okay, let's create that policy. Easy. So now anytime that type of information is sent inside, outside the organization, or internally within the organization, then we are going to see, and it's going to get alerted to the administrator in this particular case, or whoever we need to review that. Okay, so now we can start to really see whether we're sharing any of this information. Easy. What else? So I think one of the other ways that we can help protect users is also, we've talked about kind of this offensive and threatening languages and images. One of the other simple things that we can do is stop them falling victim to, again, simple viruses that are contained within files that are shared from either internal sources or external sources as they preview them inside Microsoft Teams or as they open them inside their desktop applications. So let's go and have a look at how we can set up safe attachments and safe documents. Again, we're going to go to a slightly different portal. We're going to jump into protection.office.com, and Microsoft do tell us protection and compliance and security and all those centers are coming together into a unified experience. We're not there today. So we're going to jump into protection.office.com. I'm going to go down to threat management. I'm going to have a look at the policy, and I'm going to have a look here under safe attachments. And I'm just going to check the global settings up here. Now, you can see that I've turned these on in a previous example, but by default, these are turned off. So what we have here is Defender for Office 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. So if there are any malicious attachments inside the documents, then actually Defender will filter those out and stop the user clicking on them. It will check those files first, and it will stop them from clicking on those links. Now, that's a real big help for when they're clicking and previewing them inside Teams. The next place we might want to do that is inside the desktop applications. So we want to make sure that we can turn that on for when they pop them and choose open in desktop application. Now you do need the E5 security license for this. So we just need to make sure that you have the license if you're going to use this feature. You can also see that we can allow people to click through the link regardless. So if they've been told, this is dangerous, please don't click on this, they can override it. Why would we do that? Let's leave that switched off. Okay, so we hit save. And that's it. There are 10 very, very solid ways that you can help protect your business data, your users, and the content that gets sent through Microsoft Teams. We can choose to protect, we can choose to deny that information from being sent around, like credit card information, and we can choose to retain different types of sensitive information or conversations that happen inside Teams. So all really, really solid stuff. I would recommend that you go through and you have a look at what you need for your organization and check these 10 settings to make sure that you really are getting the best security settings for Microsoft Teams. And that's it. I told you we were going to get a bit spicy. We're going to get deep into the real security settings here, not just the usual external sharing settings. So I hope that's been useful, and thanks for your patience. As ever, if this video was useful to you at all, then please give us a thumbs up, give us a like, leave us a comment and just let us know what your thoughts are. If there was anything you'd like to see us delve deeper into or see in action, again, drop us a comment, leave us a note. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to know more about when more videos are coming out, hit that subscribe button. And that's it. I will leave you in peace. As always, I will see you next time.